Well, let's do this. Just getting some Raider content. There was something that you wanted to dive into, a recent report that came out this week. So I want to take it away from what you've gathered on the inside. You write for the Raiders. No big deal. So I mean, kind of for the Raiders, about the Raiders, that's for certain. Just blog baby. So you got your ear to the ground, my friend. What are you hearing out there? What are the reports? And I don't know what you were talking about. Please, Mike, tell the people.
Well, everybody knows that the ground floor is Twitter, right? So there was just a report coming out that, Ziegler, McDaniels, everybody in the front office, they are going to work on getting their guys in-house, right? And that potentially means moving on from people that aren't their guys. And a lot of just speculation and things floating around was that they could be willing to trade some players, possibly even some key players. And the article the tweet that I saw said that NFL teams are going to keep an eye on Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. So I just wanted to pose that out there for you, and just see, get your thoughts on it, how you would feel about either Waller getting dealt or Renfrow getting dealt, or both, or where you're at on your where your brainicles are thinking when it comes to this report and whether any of that could happen.
Did you say my brainicles?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Thank you for addressing them appropriately. I don't know. I think it's I think it's true and false, if that makes sense. I think Ziegler and McDaniels are definitely going to go to try to turn over this team pretty quickly because they didn't have enough time to do it in the offseason. You can't really turn over a full team and get all the players that you need, right? But I think that's something that we talked about throughout the years, like, with Patrick Graham, right? Like the scheme that he's running, like we still had so many players that were from Gus Bradley's scheme, right? That cover three Seattle scheme. So I definitely think that they're going to overhaul it now that they have a full season of tape to look at, assess the players on the roster, and a full off season with the draft and free agency as well. So I think that there's going to be a lot of change. I would just be hard pressed to think that they're going to move on from Waller and or Renfrow with that, because I mean, what did they play? Adams, Waller, Renfrow played 4 games together, right? 3 or 4 games together. It's very limited sample size, and I think you take Carr out of the picture, and then let's say we upgrade or whatever it is, right? At that position, I think those, especially attracting a free agent or making a trade, like this offense and that receiving core is something that we could pull a Brady over to, or we could have make a trade with the Packers to get Aaron Rodgers, and he would be coming over to this core. I think it's a very attractive thing that you don't really like. How are you going to, like, do you want to rebuild or do you want to like recharge? I think we're trying to recharge right now, retool, whatever you want to call it. But I just think it would be, I don't see us moving on from either one. I mean, I think Renfrow is special for what he does. Like McDaniels made Wes Welker and Edelman those guys. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I think he has more confidence there. I think tight ends of Waller's talent level are few and far between. This is a pretty loaded tight end class, but it's really how does McDaniels and then also Ziegler, but Ziegler works through McDaniels on the personnel side. How do they truly value those guys? And it's just hard to tell when they only had 1 year of evaluation, and those guys were both very injured for most of the year, right? So I don't think they're going to move on from them. Do I think they would move on from Waller because of his injury concerns? Because his injury concerns are his, not historical, but like they're multiple years, right? There's multiple years he's missed a few games, and last year he missed significant time. So I think Renfro's was just that Cardinals game where we lost Cardinals game we lost in overtime, where he got a concussion, he got banged up, and everything like that, right? So I think Waller's injury history is more concerning. So I think if they got a good deal, that they be like, hey, I feel good about this class, and I feel good about the weapons that we do have. Foster Moreau is a big part of that. Their confidence level in him to be kind of that not stopgap, but like that replacement is something to look at. So I don't think they move on from either of them, but at the end of the day, like everyone has a price. So if they get some, hey, we can move on from Waller because we have Moreau, and we can draft a young tight end in this draft that's loaded, and we get additional picks because of it, maybe a second round or whatever it is. I don't know what Waller's price would be, right? But yeah, all that to say, I think they're going to aggressively turn over the roster, but I think those players are players that they want to build around. They re-signed them to new deals last year, right? And they weren't able to see what they wanted to see because of the injury. So I don't think they move on from them that fast. If anything, I think it would be Waller, which is I wouldn't do it, but I could see his trade value because of his talent and his age, and also his contract isn't. I mean, it's at the top end of tight ends, right? But I think there's a lot of teams that need tight ends, and we're one of them because we want to keep him. So yeah, I'll stop talking now. But that's kind of my thoughts on it, and I think we're going to see it that aggressive nature to find those types of guys on both sides of the ball. But I'd be hard pressed to say that they're going to move on from either of those two.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And what intrigued me a lot when this was actually before this kind of came out, there was something from Hondo Carpenter. He's Sports Illustrated writer, beat writer for the Raiders. Came out saying he wouldn't be surprised if a car trade included another player. He said it's not. I couldn't name any names, but it's something that I've heard as a potential possibility, right? And you think about it, and when it comes to trading with somebody, giving Carr a little exiting buddy to go to another
Do
team
you
with.
have your exiting buddy?
Exactly. Go to another team with, it's like it's Waller and it's Renfrow. Those are the two guys. Mac Hollins, he's a free agent. They're not going to trade Devontae Adams with, someone. So those are really your two options, right? I wrote an article about potential packages that might include another player. I would say that I probably swung for the fence. I kind of like high-ended things, right? I'll throw those out at you. You can tell me what you think. All right. The first one was that the Jets were going to swing for the fences, is the title on it. The Jets get Derek Carr and Darren Waller. The Raiders get pick number 13 overall this year, first round pick, number 43 as well, which is their second round pick, and then a 2024 first round pick. So we're going to see 2 firsts and a second for Waller and Carr. So think about this. This is kind of where the justification came into play. Waller, I think, talent-wise, is worth a first, maybe a first plus. Okay. Carr, fringe, probably not a first, maybe a little under a first, right? So that's how you level out that second round pick as kind of the mediator between. You basically got Carr for a first, Waller for a first, and that second kind of equals out the fact that you get a little less value from Waller. This is me just going off, right? This is probably very high expectations on it. But looking into Waller's contract, he doesn't have any more guaranteed money after this year. Also, trading him as opposed to cutting him, trading him pre-June 1st saves us $11 million, and there's only like $900,000 dead cap money from him. So I feel like they structured his contract kind of having somewhat of an out-ish, giving a lot of money up front for the most part, but making it to where it's kind of attractive to trade if, in fact, they got to that point. So real quick, what say you about that?
I don't think it's too much of a stretch. I mean, I would say the 2024 first rounder would be more of a stretch. Now, I think also what you're talking about is a team that is on a fringe playoff team that needs a quarterback, and obviously another weapon is going to be great, right? To where they're like, okay, we'll give you the 2024 first rounder because we're expecting to pick in the 20s, something like that. So you would look at it like, man, a first round pick. Well, it's not, I don't think it's going to be 17 overall or whatever you said. Was it 17?
13 overall is what the Jets have
Yeah.
this year. They have 13
Okay.
and 43 from this year, and then a first round next year. I did want to say, sorry, before I meant to say, the Jets offense, the one thing they're lacking is a tight end. They have Conklin at tight end, but you see their receivers. They got what's his name from
Garrett
Ohio
Wilson.
State? Yeah, they got him. They have
Elijah
Moore. They've got weapons, on the outside. One thing they're lacking is really some dominance at the tight end position. So, yeah. Anyways, that's why I went with the Jets for that.
Yeah. No, I honestly don't think that's unrealistic. It might be a stretch. And the only thing I would consider is I don't know if they would feel great about giving away if they're like, okay, we have to give up this first and next year's first for these two. If it were just talking Carr or Waller, right? We're not talking 2 first. But I would say, yeah, okay, we'll give up these 2 first for these 2 players. And then maybe I could see them doing like a third, right? Like a third, or like, hey, we'll give you our 2 and you give us your 4th. You know what I'm saying? Like a pick swap there. So anyways, that's yeah, I like it. I like where your head's at. I mean, even though he's never playing, I have a hard time giving up on Waller because of how good he can be. And like, dude, like thinking of Gronk, thinking of the other guy that played tight end there that's no longer with us and was a murderer. It's like I know that Gronk and Hernandez were truly special, but like, I think Waller can play at that level. But obviously, you got to stay healthy. But it's, do you want to give up on a talent like that for a team that is like, we're trying to win right now? They're playing for their ass, right? Like McDaniels and Ziegler are playing they can't go 6-11. So I think if they were going to include Carr and Waller, I think that return is relatively fair. Maybe a little bit, sweet for some, but good work.
So next one, the Saints get Derek Carr, Hunter Renfrow. They give up a 2023 second round pick, which is number 41 overall, and then a 2024
because they don't have their
first round pick because they don't have a first. So the talk behind that, and you mentioned it, and that's kind of where my idea came from as well, is they're trying to move Sean Payton, right? And they're wanting a first round pick plus. Now that would indicate that they're going to get a first rounder this year, obviously, to feel better about moving on from their second round pick. But if they get 2 first rounders for him, or if they get a first this year and a second next year, they've got 2 seconds next year if they trade their first with us. Move up, do whatever you want with, all that kind of stuff. So that's a lot. I think that's definitely, I don't know. I feel like that's a optimistic side of both of these bets, but you're getting a first, almost like a first and a second straight up for Carr. And
so it's a second
Renfrow
this year and a first next year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Once again, I don't think that's too hard to imagine. Sean Payton is going to take a job, right? They're at the final stages of interviewing. It's either the Cardinals. I think he was also interviewing for the Broncos role. Frank Reich just got hired by the Panthers. So that's another thought. We could talk about this another time. But Frank Reich, former coach of the Colts previously had interest in Derek Carr. They keep saying that they don't want to just have another veteran, the Colts are saying that, but now Frank Reich is in Carolina, possible destination there. So think about that. Keep tabs on there with your ear to the ground of Twitter. I think a second this year and a first I think they would do it. I mean, how about we'll take your third and Marshawn Lattimore and the first next year. Throw that in there. Even though they're going to be making a trade to win now, and they're like, we want to give up the best corner. But it's like, he's been kind of hurt. They're like, so is Renfrow. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and the Saints are like, I think the Saints are like $5 million in the negative, in the red.
They don't have a lot of money
this year. And, Michael Thomas, who knows what they're going to do with him? He's been hurt. They have Chris Olave, who has filled in well. But like outside of that, Jarvis Landry's been hurt, and he's a free agent. Wide receiver position, they essentially they got Alvin Kamara as their second best receiver on the team.
Yeah, I think Renfrow would be a perfect complement to Chris Olave, who turned into their wide receiver one, mostly because they didn't have options, and Michael Thomas is always hurt. So, but I think he's a stud. I like it, Mike. I like where your head's at. Those are great ideas. I mean, there's so many different ways this can go, right? There's so many different thoughts, and like even just with Carr, like even like not even including Waller, Renfrow there. Panthers, like we talked about. I don't think Brady's coming back to the Bucks, and you got the Jets, you got the Commanders, they got the Saints. There's a lot of different ways this can go, and it's just like it's killing me because this needs to be done in 3 weeks, right? It needs to be done, and I need to know. We got to know where he's going, but we'll see. Which is just going to make it more interesting for all of us here at Raider Nation. So